everyone. If you haven't seen me before, I am Mel and I am an eating mindset coach. I help people break from their self-destructive habits so that they can stop dieting for good. Basically, I help people to return to their normal eating, what we were born with as babies. We knew when we were hungry and we knew when we were full to stop eating, and also to eat the things that we're meant to eat. So today I am going to talk to you about how to transition to a healthier diet or a plant-based diet without it feeling really painful. Also, I do not like to measure or to calculate nutrition and things like that. So I want to eat as easy as I can without having to worry about whether I'm gonna be lacking in protein or lacking in any calcium or whatever vitamin it is. I literally will just make sure that I've got the food in the house, and then I just like do a little bit of pick mix, but I'll tell you how I do that anyway. The way that I see it, transitioning to a plant-based diet and eating healthily is pretty much the same thing in my books anyway. There is no difference between, unless of course you become vegan, and most vegans, they really don't care about their health. Don't shoot me if you're a vegan and I've just said you're not healthy. I'm just saying that traditional vegans are vegans because of the animals. They don't agree with the the treatment of animals, but a lot of plant-based eaters are not necessarily vegans or care about that animals. They're literally eating a plant-based diet because they know it is the best diet humans can be on, and humans absolutely thrive on a plant-based diet, and I have never felt better. In fact, since I went plant-based, I was born with asthma that has almost gone, and I used to have a lot of allergies, and I'm sure it was mainly because I had a lot of dairy in my diet. I did have it tested and it said like I had an intolerance to dairy, but I still loved my cheese back in the day, so I kept eating cheese. But then obviously now I've read a lot about plant-based diet, and there's some really seriously scary stuff. So if you wanna brainwash yourself into it, I spoke about this I think on yesterday's video or the day before, I have to check later, about brainwashing yourself into eating healthier or to avoid eating crap. Use one of those things. But in the couple of books that I've read, which is How Not to Die, and that tells you it's not a very good title, honestly. If you want to like kind of influence people, it's just not a very nice title, because people kind of take one look at that title, kind of run a mile. It's like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to influence me for? But the other one is called the China Study, and it is the biggest nutritional study ever conducted to date. Its whole purpose was to find the connection between our foods that we eat and our health, and the studies in there has proven that animal products kills us. But anyway, I'm going on a bit of a tangent because I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'll talk about the findings on another video. So tonight I just wanted to change things a little bit, because I know I've been talking a lot about mind hacks, but tonight I'm talking about how to make it easy to go onto a healthy diet of plant-based diet. So the number one hack I would say is, if you're completely new to eating healthily, you're eating a lot of processed foods and still like eating a lot of animal products in your diet, first thing is try and find one thing that you can change. So for example, on our diet we had a lot of white things I would call in our household, that is like bread and pasta and rice. The easiest thing is, and you'll boost your nutritional levels so much. Plus fiber is really, really important to our diet. It actually saves us having fiber, and most of us are walking around with really lack of fiber. So if you swap anything that you have in your house to whole wheat or brown, if you know, in simple terms, so get rid of all your white rice and replace it with whole grain rice. Or if it's really hardcore, and I know a lot of people are not used to eating whole grains, and I know, like, when back in the day, my other half, he doesn't like to eat whole wheat pasta, and it's amazing how, like, your taste buds kind of get used to it eventually. So if you're not really keen on whole grains like brown rice or brown pasta or brown bread or anything like that, what I suggest is just go halfway, hybrid your meals. So if you don't really like to have brown pasta, how about just get in, I'm sure you can buy semi, like half brown. So get rid of, the idea is trying to wean yourself out of the white, because the problem with white food is with the process, it literally strips any kind of nutrient that any of the foods have. You may as well just eat paper when you're eating white food. And I know it says, oh, added calcium or added fiber and things, but it's just rubbish. It really is. You're better off, even if you like can't stand brown, just try and wean yourself and just like get 2/3 white and then 1/3 brown, and you'll barely taste the whole grains. And then just up the brown or the whole grain a little bit more and a little bit more until you're actually got rid of the white, because I think that is one of the biggest things that you can do right now. That is just so easy. It doesn't mean you have to stop eating your carbs, like your pasta, your bread or your rice, because you can eat it still, but you're just swapping it for things that are gonna do something good for your body. And plus, having whole grains is kind of helps you shed weight as well, because white is like glue. It clings onto your body, and it's really difficult for the body to digest that. So that's the first one. And the second one, I've already mentioned it, hybrid your foods. So again, with rice is the easiest thing that I can think of, but there's so many things that I call it pimping up my food, and sneaking in nutrients into all your meals as much as you can, because this way you don't even notice it. So let's say, for example, rice, you're having curry tonight. We never have just boring plain rice in our household. I would always cook a pot of quinoa, and I would cook a pot of spelt, like some bulgur, and then I have it all ready, and then I'll just mix that with the rice and then have the curry. So in that way you're sneaking more nutrients and more fiber and whatever these grains have, because the more whole grains that you have in your diet, the higher the fiber is, and the more nutrients you're just sneaking in there without even noticing. You don't even have to change your menu. When you're doing your spaghetti bolognese, just add some lentils in there. And it might feel weird at first. When I used to eat animal products, it was just plain meat, tomato, maybe a few carrots thrown in, and the pasta is just so plain. And I appreciate that people have got used to that way of eating, having plain food. But if you keep adding and keep pimping up your meals, then you'll find that you get used to all these different grains. And maybe I've gone a bit backwards actually, because I should have said first is like, learn what kind of food is available for you, to you. And that is like quinoa and all the other grains and lentils, chickpeas, hemp. So I could list them all, and you might be unfamiliar with grains, but what I recommend is just go out, and maybe it might be difficult for you to kind of go in full hog, but next time you go shopping, maybe do like try one new food a week. So with your rice, like I said, maybe you can try, I haven't tried quinoa this week, we're gonna have quinoa, all the family, and then next week we'll try spelt, because you don't have to like everything, and the only way you're gonna find what you like is by trying them out. And there is literally thousands. I still haven't tried half of the foods because there's just so much choice. And the problem is, when you've been used to eating from Uncle Ben's jars or Marks and Spencer's pre-made meal and things like that, you kind of cut yourself off with the amount of choice that you have when you cook yourself. And that's another thing as well. You're probably saying, well, I don't have time to cook. And yep, if you don't have time to cook, well, I hope you've got money. That's what I'm saying. Or personal chef, because do you know what? When you don't have time to cook, it does cost like about 3 to 4 times more, because let's say, for example, I buy like a kilo of lentils, like a half a kilo, like about that much, and that would cook us about, I don't know, about 6 or 7 kilos worth, a huge pot. And that's another tip that I was going to say, is if you don't have time to cook, batch cook it. And batch cooking, if you haven't heard of that term before, is like when I'm cooking dinner for us for one meal, our family of 3, we're only a small family, I'd make sure I'd make it big enough so there's enough for 3 or 4 meals. So we'll probably have another lot the next day, but then I'll freeze the rest. And with lentils, I would, for the kilo, I would cook the whole kilo instead of just cooking 1 cup, and then I would freeze, because that is the thing, I freeze everything. So I do a huge pot of lentils and I just freeze it. And you know, I was saying before about doing hybrids and pimping up your meal. When you cook your grains, just cook the whole lot. It really doesn't make any extra effort when you cook enough for 2 people or enough for 10 meals. It's the same pot, it cooks exactly the same time. Well, probably a little bit longer, but not that much. And then and just have it all ready in the fridge, and all you got to do is just mix it up together when it's dinner time. What else is there? Oh yes, I've already touched on this, like make time to cook. Not only is it that it will save you a lot of money, because buy a packet of lentils, I know in England that you can buy it for like £1, but you can also buy a tin of lentils, which is probably just enough for 1 person, and that's like almost £1. But with that packet of £1 lentils, it's probably equivalent to about 10 or 15 tins of lentils. So if you don't have the time to cook, well, you don't have any choice then. You have to go and buy your pre-made stuff. So the food is available there. And maybe when you're transitioning, first of all, to a healthy eating diet or to a plant-based diet, tins work great, because you know you're not going to waste it too much. So you carry on cooking the way you are and just buy a tin of lentils, and then just put a couple of teaspoons in there. Just try and play around with it. Oh, the great thing is about being on a plant-based diet, you're not really on a diet. So a lot of people think it's a diet, but it's not really a diet. We're just not eating shit, that's all. You know, if somebody said, oh, go and eat that pile of cow pat, it's like, no thank you. That's how people see plant-based. They don't see animal products as food. And the good thing about that is that we still eat cakes and we still eat biscuits and we have ice cream and things like that. Difference is we don't use any animal products. But the next hack that I'm about to share with you, you can do that if you're still having animal products, is pimp up your cakes as well. A lot of the basic cake mixture is just flour and egg and whatever. If you're going on to a plant-based diet, which is even better, because I say diet, but it's not really a diet, you know what I mean, don't you? With the plant-based diet, you use alternatives, which is like flax seeds or chia seeds, which is so packed with nutrients as well. If you're going to make brownies, you can make it with like peas and beans and things like that. Start searching Google and search bean brownies, and I tell you what, when you're eating a brownie and it's made out of beans and it's packed with protein, or cookies made out of chickpeas, you'll soon stop feeling guilty about eating a cookie and a cake, because it's made out of chickpeas, or it's made out of peas, or it's made out of whatever beans there is. And once you start eating like this, it doesn't really even taste any different than the actual real thing. In fact, when you go back to eating normal cakes and that, you can taste the artificial emptiness. I tell you what though, if you do love your bread, and I know a lot of English people kind of keep away from bread because they think there's something wrong with gluten, but we love our bread here, and probably because we're in France, you know, you can't live in France and not eat bread, right? I would totally recommend get yourself a bread maker and make your own bread. And I do think I should make a video one day, show you how quick it is for me to make bread. It's certainly a lot quicker than my live videos, that's for sure. It is so easy, and literally I just winged it. When I first got the bread maker, I cooked whatever recipe it came with, but then after a while I just literally used whatever flour that I listed on my ultimate vegan starter kit with all the top nutrients, and I thought I'm just gonna stick some hemp flour, pumpkin seed flour in there, some amaranth. These words you're probably thinking, it sounds gibberish to me, but you just never know until you try it. I didn't know, you know, not so long ago what these things are. And one more hack, if you're really new again to transitioning to a plant-based diet or healthy eating, don't go for it like a bull towards, right, I'm gonna go plant-based and I'm gonna quit every animal product, I'm gonna stop eating this and I'm gonna turn everything brown. Slow down, because if you do it too fast, you're just gonna traumatize yourself. And like a lot of people, you wouldn't believe, I have met so many people who said I've gone on a plant-based diet and I literally fainted, and I'm like, why? And she's like, oh, I gave up cheese and I gave up meat and I gave up gluten. And I was like, no wonder you fainted. And then she was telling me I just ate salad, you know, and I just felt so weak. And I'm like, if I ate salad, I think I'd faint as well. And the thing is, you can't expect to eat what I eat right now, because it's taken me years to get the knowledge. And even though you like read a lot of books, or you may have watched a lot of documentaries like this, to get into a habit of eating these kinds of food, it does take time. And of course, like in one of my videos, I was saying that it takes 21 days for our minds to get into a habit of things. I think it takes longer, to be honest. If you do it for 21 days, it's easier. But because the mind is always drawn to what's familiar, you have to really keep going. But I think 21 days before it stops feeling painful. But you do really have to keep up with it. So my tip is, if you don't eat fruit, for example, or you don't eat majority of the fruit, why not buy just your favorite fruit? And I guess I'm like thinking, if you're watching Facebook, that means you can afford to have the internet, right? And you can afford to have a smartphone, because you won't be watching me right now. So you'll be able to afford your favorite fruit. If you don't eat a lot of fruit and you like mangoes, just buy mangoes. At least you're getting some fruit in. And then part of like what I was saying before about experimenting, if you have a family, just like go together and think, let's try one new fruit a week. And that's how you start getting to have a catalogue of new foods that you'll start putting onto your menus every week. And before you know it, you'll find that you've got a huge array of foods that you can eat and enjoy eating. And then you can start, going for elimination. I'm not really keen on this food. And then you'll have a whole load of foods that you really love. I just find it really exciting going to the shops and trying out new grains and new fruit, and coming home and experimenting, and it's disaster or it's successful, like have some fun at the same time. And that is basically everything that I wanted to share today. And I really, really appreciate you coming on here and showing some support. And for now, have a lovely evening.